Okay, good morning, everybody. As we go to the chitas of the day, today is Wednesday, the 28th day of Cheshvan. We are holding in the book of Genesis. We are in the Parsha of Toldos, and we are holding chapter 26, verse 23. Vayal Mishon Be'er Shava, and Yitzhak went up from there to Be'er Shava. Verse 24, and they came to vision to him on that night. And it said to God said to him, I'm the God of Abraham, Avicha, your father. Al tira, do not be afraid. Al tira, do not be afraid. Because I am with you. And I will bless you. And I will multiply your seed because of Abraham, my servant. Verse 25, so he built over there an altar, and he called in the name of God. And he pitched over there his tent. And Isaac's servants dug a well in that place. And Abimelech came to him from Gerar. Abimelech told him to leave, and now he came to visit him. A group of his companions, Ufichol, and Fichol, his general. So Rashi says, Targum renders a group of his friends. Some interpret the words Mede'eu, the mem, part of the root word, like the 30 Mede'eim of Samson. In order to the word achuzah should be constructed as is. However, it's not polite to speak to royalty in such a manner, his group of companions, because it would imply that he brought his entire group of companions, and that he only had one group of companions. That's not nice. The king, everybody loves the king. To be king, therefore, it should be interpreted in the previous manner. Chuzas is part of his friends, not all his friends, part of his friends. Next, Rashi, Achuz is a group, is an expression of a gathering or a band of people who held together. Yitzchak and Yitzchak said to them, why are you coming here today? You hate me. You sent me away. So they said, we have seen. The God is with you. Therefore he said, let us make an oath between us. Between us, between ourselves and you. And let's make a covenant. So that said, is a double expression. We've seen and we have seen. We've seen by you and we've seen by your father. Let the oath that exists between us from the days of your father be now also between us and you. If you do not harm us, like we didn't harm you, and as we have done with you, only good. We sent you away, but we sent you away in peace. So you now, Baruch Hashem, blessed is the Lord. So I said, we have not touched you when we said to you, go away from us. Ata, you too, do to us likewise. Let us have a peace agreement between one another. And that completes the Chumash for today. The Tanya of today is, we go to the second essay of the Kuntas Achrein. And as these essays of the Kuntas Achrein of the Alter Rebbe, the last part in the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe deals with Kabbalistic questions, very Kabbalistic questions, deep questions in Kabbalah. So you just have to, these things, you have to listen to it, just let it penetrate your mind, these Kabbalistic concepts, and maybe learn it again and again, because it should become part of our understanding. So Ayim Eitz Chaim Shar Hanekuda Shar Ches. Examine the state Eitz Chaim, which is a book of Kabbalah, the Shar Hanekudot, the gate of Nekudas, Perek 6, gate 8, chapter 6. Shein Achzor upon him, they mitzvahs ma'is dark. There's no return to face except through mitzvahs that require action. Excuse me. The text cited, I have previously discussed the stage of creation in which the bracket of 6 spheres known as a collective Za, Zeir Ampin, and the Sphira of Malchus. We know that there are 10 Sphirot. 3 are intellectual, Chachma, Bina, Das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, and there's 7 emotional. But in the 7 emotional, there is really divided into 2. There is 6, it's compared to the 6 days of the week, and that's the 6 Sphirot. It's Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Chod, Yesod, Malchus. Netzach, Chod, Yesod. Those are the 6 Sphirot, the 6 days of the week. And then you have the Sphira Malchus, which is separated from it. It's part of the group, but separate. Like the day of Shabbos, part of the week, but really separate. So we're first emanated and revealed in the world of Atzilus. So Chassidus says in every world there is these 10 manifestations, and especially the 7 midot, 6 and Malchus, revealed from Chachma and Bina, the spiritual parents. Adam and not yet created, and hence the avodah of fulfilling the mitzvahs did not yet exist. At this stage, if Zah and Malchus had united face to face, there would be an infusion of divine energy from the innermost aspect of Zah to the innermost aspect of Malchus. Because their unity would bring about a great fusion. This, however, would enable the clippers to receive. This, however, would enable the clippers to receive more than their due share of life-giving influences from the source of holiness. Now, that's a general concept in Chassidut, Kabbalah, that klippa, which is the opposite of kedusha, doesn't have existence but from holiness, and they receive their holiness. They receive their vitality actually from a very high level in holiness, from a place in holiness where it can handle, so to say, the opposite of itself. The union was therefore merely back to back. So in essence, if in these holy worlds, there will be a face-to-face union between these great entities of godliness, it would actually have a negative effect, because there'll be such a powerful energy that even negativity would be able to receive its vitality from it, because it would be able to go to such a very high place. Chassidus gives the example. That's why Haman, apart from the story of Purim, but Haman made a lottery because he wanted to go to a place to receive his vitality of negativity from the concept of a lottery, which is a very high place in spirituality, where there's so to say, above the concept of good and bad. Right? As we get on Purim, we're supposed to not know the difference between the wicked Haman and the blessed Mordechai. There is in certain places of holiness where it's above the concept of good and bad, and therefore bad can also receive from it. So therefore, the Eibusha said that in the spiritual worlds that come together, it would always be back to back. Yisa Shem Panav Elecha. When does the concept of face-to-face happen? Is only in this world. When we rectify the world and we elevate the world, the physical world, we bring a concept of face-to-face situation because we make the vessel. That's why this world is called Olam Atika, in the world of rectification, because we make the vessel so that they'll be able to receive the godliness. So therefore, that's the Kabbalistic concept. Why specifically in this world is the concept of face-to-face. You think if it's happening face-to-face in this world, it would happen in the world, surely in the upper world, but the opposite. Siddur says is total opposite, that it happens specifically in this world. So the union was therefore merely back to back. Only the external aspect of Zah was drawn into Malchus. Only after Adam was created and performed mitzvahs, effectively trimming and hacking off the thorns. That's what it says in the Avdol Shamra. God said, you're going to have to work the ground, right? You're going to have to work the ground. What does it mean by work the ground? So in the spiritual terms, you're going to have to be, that starts off the whole concept of rectifying. You're going to have a beautiful flower, but you're going to have to take off the thorns. You have a beautiful rose, but you're going to have to take off the thorns to be able to enjoy it. Limiting the nature of klippus. Malchus, now you can have face to face. In other words, divinity can be revealed within this world without any nature being illegitimate divinity. Therefore, you can actually bring divinity, godness in the world without, God forbid, klippot, negativity receiving its life force. Because you pushed away the negativity. You cleaned up the negativity. And when you cleaned up the negativity, klippus, the coverings, and the husks, then you can have the concept of pure face-to-face relationship. So to explain this concept, which we just said, Dr. Rebbe is going to say it over here. The reason, as given there in Eitz Chaim, in Kabbalah, it is by the means of good deeds. Goydem Zivagel brings about a supernal union, causing Zah. Zah is a 6 firot in the upper worlds to a Malchus and the aspect of kingship to bring about face-to-face union. You say it in your davening, right before the Baruch Shama, L'shem yichud kutsha bricha u'shchinte. You bring about the yichud, and there's a custom by many Jews to say this before every bracha, before every mitzvah. I'm doing it for the sake of the unity between kutsha bricha, between God, u'shchinte, and his dwelling, his presence. So Rishayim Kutsha B'richa is the 7 middos, the 6 middos, Zah, which is the 6 midot in every world. Ushchinte, Shchina is the Malchus, is the aspect of Malchus. I'm bringing the unity by me doing a mitzvah. In this world, I bring the unity between these two concepts in all the worlds. To understand why mitzvahs ma'aseh dakrin. So the Alter Rebbe asks, why is it specifically involved action? Why can the same result brought a mitzvah fill through thought and speech? Why through action? You've mashakash b'shar ben umad uman umad will be understood in the light of what's written in Eitz Chaim, the gate of man umad. The nukva de zeirampin. First, okay, it's Kabbalistic words. Man is mayim nukmin, which in simple term means feminine water. We spoke about this many times in Tanya. Feminine water means the concept of the aspect of what he called avodas to bring up from below to above. That's mayim nukmin, feminine waters. It's masculine waters that come from above. Feminine waters in general what come from above, below. The receiver. When the receiver needs to work on the below to be able to receive. It's very simple terms. That's the concept of rectification. We go from below to above. We can receive something as a gift from above, or we can receive a reward. What's the difference in a gift and a reward? Gift is given to us as a gift that we maybe deserved or didn't deserve. A reward is because what we've done. So we receive a reward. That's mayim nukvim. There must be an elevation of mayim nukvim, an arousal initiated by the recipient from nukva, the feminine element of zeirampen, of zah, of malchus. So we need to have so for malchus to be able to receive Zah, the Malchus, which is the 7, to be able to receive from the 6 spheres, it needs to make that arousal. It needs to make that connection. It needs to have some bittul, so to say. It needs to. That's why Malchus is the ultimate concept of bittul. So it shows its bittul to Zah, and now it receives it. It receives the blessing. It receives the infusion. And the waters of Nukva in a state of action, as explained in chapter 1. In other words, things of this world, whose source is the spheres of Malchus, which is Nukva of Zah, must be elevated to their source in holiness. This can be accomplished only through mitzvahs, whose fulfillment requires action performed with the material components of the world. Now again, because ultimately what creates the world in Chassidus and Kabbalah, what creates the world? Malchus. That's why we speak about the Eibush as a melech, because we want Tamlichune Aleichem, so to say, we say every bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech. Because Malchus is what, the attribute of Malchus is what creates the world. So everything in the world is a vessel. That's why you have to look at everything in the world as a vessel. Everything in the world is created for God. You ask how? And the answer is simple. Because everything in the world is a vessel. Because everything in the world was created through the attribute of Malchut, which is a vessel. So everything in the world needs to take in that vessel and now make it, develop it, clean it, take out whatever else is in there that doesn't belong there, and now make it ready for the infusion of godliness. And that's everything in the world. So we take a cow, for example, and we use its hide to make tefillin or to make portions. So we could use the hide for something on the wall or for a carpet or whatever. People use hides of cows, and we use it for a mitzvah. We took the vessel, we separated it, we said we're going to use this for a mitzvah, and we made a mitzvah out of it. We took the flesh of the animal, we ate it, and we made a bracha. And we use it for the sake of a mitzvah. Everything in the world, every physical thing in the world is a vessel. So why? Because everything comes from Siddur HaMalchus. Everything comes, the whole world was created through the aspect of Malchus. This alone makes possible the supernal union, which reveals divinity within this world. However, how can it be ensured that no part of this revelation will lead to klippus? How do we know that through my making the vessel will not give os of vitality to what's called chitzonim, which is also known as chitzonim, external forces? How the Rebbe says, every good deed that a Jewish person does is described as trimming and hacking off the thistles, and the which attach themselves to the hinder part, which is a state of deed, which occurs to B'Sharmem Perek, as written Eitz Chaim, Gate 47, chapter 5. It is the performance, the meaning is, it's a performance specifically of these commandments that hacks away the klippus, which, like unchecked roots of thistles or weeds in a vineyard, would otherwise encroach on the life-giving waters and divert them from their intended destination. So it's like weeds in the field. They come to grab the water and take the water from what it's really there for. And that's for the beautiful flowers and vegetation. But through this mitzvah, we take away, we deweed, we get rid of the negative. How do we do that? This pruning is affected by elevating the element of good that is concealed in them, things of this world that are related to the world of action. And that is enclosed in the mitzvah of action. So that's why we need to do more and more mitzvahs that are connected to action. Because through doing the mitzvah and hacking away the negative by doing the positive mitzvah, we elevate this mitzvah, elevating this element of good to the source, to the sanctity, ultimately to the world of emanation that already been refined. So, meaning the performance of a particular mitzvah makes it possible the purification and elevation of those physical things that are in need of this extracting the elements of good that is within them and elevating them to holiness. So that's the beauty of a mitzvah. And that's why, and not only a mitzvah, but a mitzvah that's connected to a physical action, even more than words and thoughts, etc. Because words and thoughts are wonderful, also considered in Jewish law as an action, but there's no comparison between the action of words and the action of deeds. As the expression, talk is cheap. So that's easy. The action is the action. As for the statement that's written there. That it's brought on the Zohar. That Adam Rishon rectified also through prayer. Oh, now that's seemingly the opposite of what I just said. I just said needs to be action. Well, the Zohar says over there that in the same place it says that Adam Rishon rectified the world through prayer. So the Alter Rebbe says again, I'm not negating the power of prayer. I'm not negating the power of speech. Because according to Jewish law, speech is also an action. This means that he did so through uttering the letters of speech. Not through the intent of prayer, but for the actual deed involved. For the movement of one's lip is also deemed as a deed. For they, the utterances, that I speak, derive from the vivifying soul, which is one's body and blood, who's rooting in the life. So therefore, ultimately, just like you need to rectify the world, you need to rectify a cow, you need to rectify yourself. Adam need to rectify himself. Now, how does one rectify himself? By instead of talking words of whatever, he talk words of Torah. He prays more. So by praying more, by using his lips, which is his physical body, where does he get the life force of his lips and his mouth and his way to speak? All comes from his animalistic soul. Now he takes this animalistic soul, his body, and the vitality of his animalistic soul, and he uses it out for Kedusha. That's also an action of his own body. That's rectifying his own physical existence. So as he says over here, he explains, as the Alter Rebbe explained in Tanya in chapter 1, the part 1, chapter 37, one's godly soul is incapable of uttering the words of Torah and prayer, which has been sounded by the physical mouth. The godly soul doesn't have a mouth. Your animalistic soul has a mouth. Except through the ancient vivifying soul that is invested in his body. So ultimately, how does one rectify himself, make himself a physical vessel of godliness? Is not through thought, which will rectify his brain, but how does he rectify his whole body? Is through words. That's why, again, the Chassidim, that's why also we shackle, we move our body when we learn, and we shackle when we shake, when we daven. Why? Because it shouldn't only be our words, it should be our whole body. We're all involved in it. Every part of the body is involved in the prayer. Every part of the body is involved in the learning. Now, what happens when one does that? The acts of refinement of Asiya, whether it's through action, physical action. That's the best. Or through rectifying my own body, through my words. They are in Kabbalah. The refinement of Asiyah that is accomplished through practical mitzvah sense to Yitzira, the world of formation, by means of divine name Ban. Again, it's Kabbalistic. Divine name Ban, and from Yitzira to Bria and Atzilus, as noted in the Rosh in Shar Man, the Rosh Yud Aleph Siman Zayin in the gate of Man, in the Rosh 11 section 7. So therefore, ultimately, what does this show? Alter Rebbe says, what does this show? That shows ultimately that speech and action is the most important thing, and Hirur, thought, doesn't accomplish anything in this world, right? In the upper worlds, yeah, we mentioned yesterday. In the first one, the Kutas Achar of yesterday, we mentioned the Hirur helps above, but in this world, it needs to be action. So action in this world is speech and physical action. For unless, why? Because thought doesn't elevate below. Only speech and action elevate Maim Nukvim, bring up the waters from below. For unless Maim Nukvim is elevated from the king of Noiga, it's impossible to draw forth the drops from above to affect the union of Zah, an acronym for the term of Zah and Nukva. So this elevation can be affected only through activity at the level of Asiyah as stated above. Zah and Malchus can unite only if a degree of illumination that transcends them both is drawn down upon them. To use a modal analogy, consider the union of man and woman. Is written, male and female did God create them? Did He create them? And God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. Meaning, in order for the union to bear fruits, a blessing must first ascend upon the partnership from above. And these drops of blessings from a source of divinity that transcends both Zah and Malchus, which Zah is the masculine and Malchus is the feminine, cannot be drawn forth unless Mayim Nukvim is aroused and elevated by refining the refinement of materiality of Klippas Neiga. This is also what Chassidus explains the concept of union of husband and wife. That ultimately, what is their avodah? What is their service? And what ultimately creates a blessing in their union. Why? For Zah desires to seek its nurture from the mother, from the Sfira of Bina, rather than giving forth for the lower realms. This is so in essence, Zah really wants to go to Chachma and Bina for its nourishment. It's not interested in going lower, it wants to go higher. The only way it will go lower is that the lower awakens its desire to go lower. So in essence, the meaning is that the receiver needs to awaken the giver to give. Because the giver wants to also be a receiver. And therefore the giver wants to go to higher to be a receiver. When does the giver give is when the receiver awakens him and tells him, you know, by you giving, you're going to receive. We can learn a lot from this, from the aspect of relationships. Because we have to be in a world that everybody needs to be a giver and everybody needs to feel as a receiver. So the Gemara says, more than the rich man does to the poor man does for the rich. So that the giver understands that he's also a receiver. So Zah wants to be a receiver, wants to go to, once it's natural, say, I want to go higher, I want to receive from higher. And he needs to have Malchus to tell him, no, actually you're going to receive more through coming down and become united with me, with Malchus. You're going to receive actually greater. That's why the pasuk in the Torah says, very interesting pasuk. It says that when you get married, you have to leave your mother's house. It's a mitzvah. Why would the Torah need to tell us that a person needs to leave his mother's house? How can because Kabbalah means because the son wants to go to the mother. Always gravitates to his home. No. You're gonna why? Because that's where he receives everything. That's where he received his nourishment. That's where he received everything from above. No, you get to tell him, no, you're gonna receive more from your wife than you're gonna receive from your mother. The pasuk has to tell him that because the son, the child says, no, I'll go back to my mother. These are all so ultimately, why is it in the world this way? Because it's in the upper worlds this way. That's why a chassan, before he gets married at the wedding, before the chuppah, he says a maimah which explains all these concepts. That the whole concept of what's happening over here at this wedding is the unity between Zah and Malchus. Is the unity between Zah, which is the masculine, and Malchus, which is the feminine, is happening right now at this chuppah. And to impress upon Zah that all his brachas are going to be received through Malchus. So Zah, Malchus, they both need the Malchus needs to awaken up that in the husband. In Zah, that's why one of the reasons why she circles around him 7 times. She's telling him, I am Malchus, I am the receiver, but I'm telling you, I'm going to build you. I'm going to give you more than you could have ever received. All the brachas that you're going to receive is going to come through me. Even though, so to say, you're going away from what you come from. Maybe what you came from was very special. You had special parents and holy, but now you're creating a whole new reality. It's a beautiful concept. These are beautiful concepts. But here, in essence, that's why we have to do avodah here in this world, because actually the mitzvah mice in this world, malchus in this world, when we establish the kingship of God in this world, is when all the blessings happen, not only in this world but even in the upper worlds. But Jakosav, I am Sham Zoya. You examine the Zohar, Pasha Pekudei, page 244, Amud Beis. The Is Sidura, which states that there is a mode, lestalka, gazing. Just as there's a mode of verbalized prayer, so there's a mode of prayer with kavana, but it means of one meditates and attains infinite heights as one gazes upon the glory of the King. This refers to the intention of worship and davening, the yechudim elyonim, and the supernal unions, to understand what's not only happening in this world, but to understand what's happening in the upper worlds through prayer and through mitzvahs. Those who understand and know how to gaze. So such a vigil can have an impact on these worlds through the unarticulate intention alone. Because the nefesh, shluch, and the shama themselves constitute arousal and intention by the recipient, which is known as mayim nukvid. So you have certain Jews. The Alter Rebbe says, in essence, we have certain Jews that not only can do it through action and through speech, but the action they can do it through kavanah itself, because they know what's happening in the upper worlds, and through their intention they bring it about in the upper worlds. Through their self-sacrifice devotion to Him, and during the Tachnun prayer, which we say to God I lift my soul as is known. So this ability, however, remains in the providence of select few that can do this through their intent. The overwhelming majority of Jews accomplish this elevation through mitzvahs, mitzvos, involving deed, actual deed or speech. And this is the manner they are able to bring about this union face to face between Zohar and Malchus, the sublime union of Kutsha Brichel. I mentioned La'ishemi Yichud. I'm doing this for the sake of the unity of Kutsha Brichel. Blessed be He, Ushchinte and His Shechina, which draws divinity down into this world. Extremely a very deep Tanya of the day, beautiful Tanya. You understand it more, or give us a great understanding of what we're doing and why we all need to do more and do as many mitzvahs as we can do every day, because it brings about a face-to-face relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with God, and not only in this world, but in all the worlds. And we cannot do it, most of us, only through the concept of either verbal, and that's through learning Torah and davening, prayer, or through basically going out and doing a mitzvah, and many mitzvahs, physical mitzvahs, as you can do in this world. Today is the 28th day of the month, which is going to be chapter 135, 136, 137, 138, 139, and so from 135 to 139 in your Psalms and Tillim. And if you do that, you do the chitas of the day. Tomorrow, I met Shem. We'll meet you at 8 o'clock. Also, we have a 10 o'clock class on the portion of the week tomorrow. And we have another class starting tomorrow night at 7:30 on anti-Semitism. Another beautiful class for the JLI. Fascinating class according to Chassidus. And something you'll be able to learn. It's a 4-week class. It's interesting, the JLI have established a 4-week class this year, not a 6-week, but actually a 4-week. I wish you all the best of luck and a wonderful, beautiful day. God bless you all, and have a wonderful day.
You too.